Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Philosophy. My real name is Matthew. In this video, I would like to touch upon the occurrence of violence, uh, warfare in Israel. People die every day, and what has happened in Israel is very upsetting for a lot of people. In fact, if I operate on a level, I'm an Igbo or African American Jew. So I'm Igbo and Cherokee. So if I operate on tribe, okay, rather than the whole human family, I can feel some type of way, almost how the Palestinians feel some type of way about being uprooted from where they've been for thousands of years now. But the reality is, we all probably come from the same place. If energy can either be created nor destroyed, then we all have a common root. We all have a common origin, sorry. So the Jewish people clearly have a right to defend themselves. Now that they live there, now they're there. Populations get uprooted over civilization. People have been uprooted and moved. Some groups of people were nomads, and that's all they did were move. So, what I think we're really seeing here, 106 people die from gun violence in the United States every day. So we have over 100,000 people dying in the United States alone from just gun violence, not to mention all these other things that are going on. So the amount of people that died in Israel, while it's horrible, we have the same type of problems here. It's just not a stated warfare. And the people in power have an ability to manipulate the perception of the general population by manipulating facts, info, data, our education, our language, and our media. So, and now technology. We have technomancy now. So, what am I trying to say? We need to, as a people on the planet Earth, find a way to have common peace. People have their political perspectives that, based on how a person is being informed or what they're focusing on, can lead to violence. We've already seen that in this country. We've seen it in this country since the foundations of it, in reality. One political group wanted to break away from another political group who wanted an upper hand on the founding fathers and were taxing us out of profitability. So they decided they're going to start their own thing and revolt. So every person has to gain a higher level of consciousness if they want to overcome the manipulation of the world, which really is a magic trick, where you have the three types of tricks they could do. Is a misdirection. They actually focus in one place, and then they hit you with another thing. Um, you have a sleight of hand type of techniques that can happen. Okay, and then you have illusions. And now we're in a time in history where many people are going to fall under great delusion, greater than any time in history, because the technology has rose to a level where not only technology can give us illusions, manipulations of facts and data, even deep fakes, AI voice replication. It's risen to such a point where our technology really will be able to control us without us knowing, and control us like, for example, search engine optimization. If we don't see a thing, or if, say, a platform like YouTube or something says we can't say a word, in the recent history of human evolution in terms of knowledge, Okay, in the Enlightenment period, where we were developing new arts and literature, we had the ability to identify things through words and labeling them. So labeling theory became a way for us to learn the world around us and also manipulate the sciences based on what we were characterizing things as. But if you can't say a thing because of the repercussions you're unwilling to face for saying that thing, in essence, now you are under control, another form of mind control. The truth is, freedom is not real. Freedom is something that a person has to establish by setting boundaries or just outright fighting for it. Freedom does not exist. We create the idea. So we have to find a way as humanity to overcome really the game that the very rich and powerful have been playing on humanity for thousands of years. Thousands of years. They have us divided up into all type of denominations. They have us divided up into political groups. They have set the intelligentsia, okay, of the time to study us like animals so that we do not have a adequate coping mechanism to understand how they are misleading us. Because once you understand how someone's misleading you, you can resist or ignore them. And this is very interesting because it really, yes, it is covered in One Piece pretty well. But now we're seeing a live time. For example, Pearl Harbor. The United States knew Pearl Harbor. They knew the Japanese were going to. Roosevelt knew that the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor and moved away infrastructure that he deemed more important and left many people there to face the brunt of the attack of the Japanese during World War II. Similarly, 9/11. You look at stocks, somebody knew something was going to happen with Power 7. Somebody knew. And didn't go to work. Put options were put up on the stock market. We knew that we had operations like Northern Vigilant and Vigilant Guardian in North America that left us with very few fighter planes to protect ourselves. So that's a new age form of a false flag wherein people do die and get hurt, and that's horrible. But these are the games that our leaders have played historically over time. Sometimes the leaders, to get away from the wars that they start, claim that they already had victory, therefore shifting the population into a positive perspective of it, not knowing the true ramifications of the warfare. We don't get to see the true talks between leaders. It's been moved behind a curtain, if you will. So I, in particular, realize certain realities. For example, we have lists people can be put on. You can be a list for an offender. You could be messing with children. You could be a felon. You could be a person who creates uh, white collar crimes. Um, so our government has lists on us. They have, just through the use of the internet or just through the use of being around electronics, have a database on what we think, how we line up, through how we register ourselves as voters, what we watch. We all have like a profile that's been built for us, a virtual profile for each of us. And if a person were to study these things, okay, they can manipulate massive swaths of people at a time. So many people in the state of Israel have dual citizenship. Thousands of people have come in to defend Israel um, from the new aggression from the people in the Gaza Strip, who are it was known as Judea when they lived there, but now they're known as Palestinians. They get renamed. People get take on new names over time. African Americans have new names now. Where African Americans are blacks, but before that, For example, we came from Africa, but Africa was not called Africa until the Romans defeated our leader and renamed the continent after one of their generals. You know, so Scipio Africanus was his name. So that's how Africa became Africa. But during imperialism of Britain, the countries in Africa also got renamed, and the borders of Africa were shifted, causing major problems amongst the tribal people in Africa. And then similar things happened after the United States went into the Middle East. They tried to really re-carve up the Middle East in a way that will lead to tribal, well, in that area, they call them sectarian violence between different groups. You know, like the Kurds, Sunni, uh, Shiites. Yeah, well, now the Western Wahhabis, version of Islam's there. Do I consider myself a Muslim? Absolutely not. But I do respect what they have in their book. I respect what's in the New Testament. I respect what's in the Old Testament. I respect the valid points of independents, Democrats, Republicans. They have us set in such a way that everything we look at, we have a fingerprint on it. We have a light that we bring whenever we experience and understand a thing. I believe that the very powerful don't want us to see our common interest, because the reality is, if we could respect one another, like sometimes borders are respected and therefore it doesn't lead to conflicts, if we could respect one another like that, then we wouldn't have individual issues of violence, boundaries, setting parameters. At the same time, the lack of a border or boundary was something that brings a certain type of pressure from one of those sensitive areas, may it be religion, politics, attractiveness, their culture, whatever. It creates a asthmatic pressure, or when it comes to migration, you can call it human asthmatic pressure. And these things are studied, and these things are observed by many people in the know, or people, for example, like Michael Yon, former Special Forces Green Beret, now a reporter. Look at the migration that is, for example, through the Darien Gap, we have a massive migration issue that we're starting to see in our own country. This is an issue that Israel had to deal with, what, in the 1950s, where they now are having so many Israelis come into the area that the Palestinians and the Israelis having different religious, very strong religious perspectives. It was a powder keg waiting to happen. United States at one time used immigration positively to try to get the best fruit from the tree, if you will, the so-called best and brightest, which is, elitist in my way, but everybody has something to offer. But they want a particular types of people that could push forth our different fields, our engineering that, came over from Germany, our science programs. We wanted wealthy people. Who doesn't want wealthy people around them? Sure, right? Because money can easily be converted into power if people accept your money, you know? And that's what's very interesting about the money system right now. Because money, because people believe in it, it fuels soldiers, warfare, you know? Uh, weapons, buying influence, and that's power. Mao said power comes from the barrel of a gun. Well, in a sense, it does. A certain type of power does, but there's an alternative power to that violence power. And for people who study the gospel, the person that the Christians call Christ, or Jesus Christ, in the New Testament, he gives us a number of tools of how to address it. So does the Quran, so does the Hindu text. You know, the state of nirvana is the state of wanting nothingness, right? Therefore, if you want nothing, then how can you be controlled? If you don't even care about food or the ability to eat, how does one coerce you with those things? If you don't celebrate holidays or if they're not a fixture in your world, how can someone manipulate you into doing something to get your holiday or to get your carrot? But Christ says, when in Rome, walk as a Roman. It doesn't mean you become a Roman. It means that you respect the culture and ways and norms of that particular group. But also, when dealing with a certain type of people that you would like to be friendly with, that you would like to not have conflict with, or you would just like to coexist with, he said, Christ said, I send you out in the pastures amongst sheep amongst wolves. So you should be as sly as a serpent, but as gentle as a dove. We've seen this in history, okay? But many people have not broke down how it worked. For example, the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King used many tactics that were used by Gandhi himself in India to push back a aggressive force that they could never defeat with brute force. However, the civil rights movement was successful because they used nonviolent tactics. Okay? But the civil rights movement, they wanted something. They wanted something. When you want someone to leave you alone, okay, then you have just to non-comply. You use something called non-violent compliance. And these things that Christ spoke about are really what I call Christ consciousness. The consciousness of Christ, just like in Revelations, our faith will overcome the world. If you believe in these nonviolent practices and only use violence as a last resort to protect yourself against someone who's trying to kill you, then you will overcome the world. Or if you don't care about your life anymore, you don't value it, then you still die having overcome the world. Just not physically, but that was never the struggle that you had to deal with. Interestingly enough, they play on certain groups play on certain things. For example, Hamas and Hezbollah all have names that refer to certain principles, you know, where one actually means struggle, a struggle, but is also known to them as a jihad. So when a person uses jihad, okay, and they have a certain low level perspective on it that is mostly physical, of course it'll lead to a physical struggle. But we don't really struggle against flesh and blood today. We are struggling as a people of humanity against a spirit. We are into spiritual warfare. And there has to be a whole nother level of information war used to fight a spiritual battle. Some people may call it dressing themselves down with the full armor of God, but you could call it Christ consciousness. You know? So if you know what's been happening to you, then now you can resist. Period. If you know what a person does, if you know what a fruit produces in time, you can stay away from that fruit or not take part in the actions that would turn you into that fruit. Not saying any derogatory statements, but I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about spiritual. The spirit manifests the flesh. Higher energy propagates down through deposition into lower energies, typically. At least that's where it is if you study text and you study science. Like Hindu text, we had high creation, then we had lower creations, as you can see around the world by major sites and megaliths and wonders of the world that we can't replicate today, allegedly, at least with the tools that we use for our normal construction. So spiritual, we are not wrestling against flesh and blood. No, we are struggling against people entities, corporations, principalities over the darkness of this world and now other worlds. We have space wars. We have operations to try to destroy asteroids, or not destroy them, but actually reroute them out of our trajectory because we know what's going to happen. So we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but spiritual, not righteousness. We don't wrestle against righteousness because if you go in the flow of the universe, or you go in the natural flow of what is considered to be good, then there's no struggle. But to swim against the tide, we struggle against spiritual wickedness, which is the opposite direction of what would be good to do. And it's coming from high places, matriculating itself down through the sciences, through the politricks or politics, polytricks, many tricks, politics, many bloodsuckers on the population of sheep down to us. And then now when we adopt that spirit, we can now rise up as a spirit into the levels of the spiritually wicked amongst their ranks. This is a spiritual warfare. And what's going on in Israel, it's bigger than Jewish Palestinian. They both have valid points. The solution, which would be to forgive and develop Christ consciousness on both sides. When I say Christ consciousness, what I mean, we need to learn how to move above our religion, move above our politics, understanding one another's boundaries and respecting them. It's really hard to beat somebody up that does nothing but try to help you and loves you. Because once you understand that, you realize that the true struggle, the true jihad, as it was written in the Quran, the true jihad is inside of you. The true struggle is in your heart and in your mind. And once we develop that, we are not just this politic, this group, or that religion, or that non-religious group versus this other non-religious secular group. Then we will start to see ourselves as one people, as one true organism, because we all breathe the same air for the most part. I mean, it is the same air. We all are breathing the same stuff our ancestors breathed for millions of years on this planet. You know, it just so happens that people have developed very strong perspectives that have been pushed on us subtly by the rich, by the powerful, who have shaped our social constructs through what I call the architects of social control: education, language, media. And they know what levers to hit. For most people, some people are beyond their scope, and they know this. And if we really were to be very focused on it, there's 9+ million people in Israel. Most do not fight. In the United States, only 2% of the people fought the British Empire. 1,500 plus people came and invaded into Israel and killed hundreds of people. Horrible. But there's millions of people in the Gaza Strip. Most people are not going to fight. Most people are silently sitting in horror about what our leaders do and how they project reality around us. Period. I've, to this point, never met an evil person. Some of the best people I've met have been atheists, Jews, Christians, Muslims. There's good people everywhere, but it's not about your religion, your politics. It's about what you do with it. It's about whatever you go into or whatever you do. It's not really about being better than somebody else. I'm a blind Tekken player. I don't care about necessarily being better. I try to make myself my personal best. And I try to reflect that light on other people in a positive way, not to make them feel bad or inadequate. Which our body politic, we have some very hard positions. We just take one person's side, another person's side, based on what our parents said or what our government wants us to do, or people go into the military. Not that they don't have a place, but they basically sign themselves over to be a human machine. Why should we sign ourselves and our consciousness over to machines? A religion is a tool. It's a tool that helps you look at the world in a certain type of way, okay? But it's also a flashlight into yourself and what's going to come out of you. As they hit you with all this information, you now manifest the light inside yourself and project it inward and outwardly. So now you're a mirror in that particular sphere. Every person you meet reflects their energy back on you and you to them. And your interaction with them brings back a self-looking mirror at yourself in conjunction with them. Playing a game is a tool. Life is a tool. So, guys, um, my solution is not even a two-state solution. It's a Christ consciousness solution. We need powerful people that will guide us and shepherd us, be good shepherds, give us good knowledge, right and exact knowledge, not wicked knowledge that seeks to teach us inappropriately or make us a commodity or turn us against each other so they can remain in a power dynamic over us while they have their own fights. They don't fight their fights themselves. Okay? A wicked shepherd doesn't fight the fight themselves. They have the people fight for them. Well, the masses, majority, stay quiet. This is just a historical fact. So we have a decision to make as humanity. Now people are starting to understand faster and faster false flags, misinformation. We have all this information at our fingertips now. We can bring about Christ consciousness inside of us. And not everybody has the scholarly ability to go through ancient text. The, the, the Quran, the Injil, or the Gospel and New Testament, the Old Testament, the Torah, the Tanakh, other spiritual writings go all date back and say the same thing as older writings like Emerald Tablets, or the Nag Hammadi text, or the Sumerian stone tablets. They're all teaching us the same thing. The people inside the books were not perfect, but it let us have a chance to learn from them. It gave us a historical reference. It taught us sciences. So we have a choice. We can let people pull our minds in whatever direction they want, or we can build a foundation of informing ourselves, not letting ourselves be riled up because bad things happen. That's part of life. We need to find a way to adapt, overcome them, but also at the same time, not to adapt and overcome so we can get an advantage against our brothers. We're all the human family, you know. Science has basically suggested that we are affected by asteroids, the sun, the moon, the stars. That's why people study astrology. It's inexact science, but I believe there's much knowledge there. Numerology, people study to learn more insight about themselves. Imagine that everything could be summed down into mathematical equations. They can. Imagine that numbers and the stars and us all connected, the sun, the moon, the stars, us, are all part of one big old matrix, which is genetic. That's a fractal of the whole world itself. Imagine how trivial the things that we really focus on, or the things that people get us to focus on. That perspective, Christ consciousness. We need somebody to step up, very powerful people to say, hey, no more wars. you know? No more foreign entanglements. Let's get our own house in order before we go somewhere else. Let's get the speck out of their eye? No. Let's get the log out of our eye before we go after the speck in their eyes. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but also do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. So that's my thoughts about what's going on in Israel, guys. There's going to be a lot of information and disinformation on both sides, supposedly. You know, I've never seen um, a government that doesn't lie. You know, I've never seen uh, a news a news station have the exact same thing with the exact same interpretation as another news station over longitudinal terms. And when that does happen, watch out, because there's a reason that news is on the news. So if they're all saying the same code word or the same phraseology, watch out. That is not human in a way, because humans naturally divide themselves up into different uh, subgroups. You know, as soon as we start getting 10 people, we're worried about who has the best shoes or shoelaces or how they wear their clothes. So in larger settings with money involved, with larger populations, it's impossible to be saying the same thing unless it's a spirit, unless it's a massive agenda trying to be passed on to us through linguistic programming, which is another one of their sub sciences to manipulate us. Okay, because if you say a thing long enough, a certain portion of people are gonna believe it. You know, it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, but it's a mass Stockholm syndrome that's gonna happen when someone repeats something so long, you start to, oh, maybe it's true, or a better partner may say, oh no, this person's not abusing me. No, I'm the problem, or no, he actually loves me or she loves me. Stockholm syndrome. Now they're calling it mass formation psychosis. Back in 2008, I was calling it mass Stockholm syndrome. So we have to raise our levels, okay? As a people, aspire to be greater, not greater than our brother, but our greatest selves. When we need to understand what's going on now, because if we don't, okay, then I think that we're gonna have a rough time in the future as a species, because the technology that we have, we're scared of technology that's over 90 years old. Imagine what's really there. Okay? And they're not going to fight this war themselves. The power rich and powerful. They're going to use the useful sheeple, the useful chattel, human animals. So let's think about these things, you know. Let's have an open mind to what our enemies are saying, and let's have a whole world peace. Let's have peace on earth. Let's put our differences that we can handle aside. Let's come up with a solution to this cycle of violence and warfare and hate. All right, brothers. Philosophy here, signing out.